All right, we ready? All right. Quiet on the set again here. All right, what we got here is Chad Reed. Going to talk about the growing up with the Lynyrd Skynyrd band, especially some antics with Alan Collins. And then, yeah, my name's Craig Reed, and they call me the most stoned roadie, or no, the world's most famous roadie, the Stone Roadie. And then our co-host is the rocket scientist, Griff Martin. And all right, here we go. Podcast 33 and action.
And welcome to the Stoned Roadie Show with Craig Reed. Of course, as he said, he's the most stoned roadie in rock and roll history. And
famous too,
and stoned.
Famously stoned.
Famously stoned. And we have Chad Reed, of course, Craig's son, and Chad's in his raincoat get up because Chad and I both live in Florida, and we got a hurricane heading towards us. So that's why we had to kick off this podcast a little earlier in the day. And then, of course, Craig looks like he already went through the storm. If he's Fidel Castro, it already went through Cuba, I think.
Yeah, I'm up here. I'm preparing for the breakdown of society, you know.
Speaking of that, Craig and I both have proof that we are right wingers.
Ow!
Because we both have injuries. You can see.
Looky here.
Left arm injuries. So the only thing that we're good for is right wing. And I told some people on Facebook that a Jaws got me, and it was actually a trash can. I was riding my bicycle and down the sidewalk, and I was heading for a curb, and I had to swerve, and when I did, I hit a trash can that had like a sharp piece of plastic on it, and it took like a fillet of meat out of my arm, and it was a pretty nasty. I can't even look at it myself. So some people.
Oh, that was nasty. Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
Shark story sounds better.
yeah. So let's just stick with the shark story. It looks like a shark.
Right.
And for y'all that don't know, I had a metal plate in my arm, and from a fall, and I shattered my elbow, and they put a plate in there, and then I fell on it again and disrupted it, and it wouldn't let that wound heal, so I had to have that plate taken out. But yeah, it didn't hurt early at all. They gave me a bunch of pain pills, but I couldn't eat the damn thing. They made me so constipated. I said, I'd rather deal with the pain, but it don't hurt. So I got a whole bottle of Percocet.
And my teachers always wondered what was wrong with me.
Well, you know, some babies are crack babies. Chad,
Right.
Chad's any drug you can think of, baby.
Right. I was conceived with THC.
That's the truth. That is the truth.
Yeah, so it's good to have Chad on the show with us here again today, because we had him on a long time ago, and I don't even remember what podcast number it was. Do you, Chad?
Yeah, lucky 13.
Was it 13? Yeah,
Yeah, 13.
So
I'm finally a Venezuelan shortstop.
we haven't even begun to cover some of the stories that Chad has about Lynyrd Skynyrd growing up. Basically, they raised him, and Ronnie and Alan and all the antics that went on. And then after the plane crash, he was involved with those guys too. So he's got all kinds of great stories. But kind of segueing into that, Craig and I were talking about something that, that happens a lot of times, like with Chad and Craig, and they'll go places where people don't really know who they are. And then as soon as they mention that they were, involved with Lynyrd Skynyrd, especially Craig, if he says, hey, I was in that plane crash, then they kind of start acting a little bit different towards you, don't they, Craig? Like,
yeah, their demeanor towards you totally changes, once they find, they just look at you, somebody, like a normal person, and then for some reason, when you mention Lynyrd Skynyrd, you put up on some kind of a pedestal or something. It's really weird, but I enjoy it. I use it every chance I get.
I remember it was about
I don't because I'm always called. I don't use it because I'm always called a liar.
Yeah, when Chad was in school and he told him, yeah, my dad works for Lynyrd Skynyrd and I travel with him sometimes. And yeah, okay, son, sit down and quit lying.
Go see the guy.
They sent him to the principal's office, and they called home and told his mom, said, Chad's the biggest liar, man. He's telling everybody he runs around with Lynyrd Skynyrd, and his dad works for him. He said, we know he's not in the band, you know. Said, no, but he's like their head guy. He's their head roadie, you know, and he's like a band member, you know, really, you know. So, yeah, they
and he probably,
you know, it's in the 7th grade, we had a Just Say No. I was doing a Just Say No campaign, and we had to do a Just Say No book report or plaster report, you know, on the big plaster boards. And I had about a week to do it. And hell, I loaded mine up with a big bag full of baby powder and rolled up perfect joints and gave a description of every drug. They had to check it to make sure it wasn't really marijuana, but yeah, they were rolled good.
well,
Chad was in school one time, and Alan came in there, part of his drug or his penalty for.
No, that was in drug rehab. My mom stuck me there for smoking weed. He had to come in and talk to all the people in the drug rehab while I was hiding in the back.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I tried to be the first one out the door, and he said, Chad, why don't you go ahead and stick around for a little bit? I thought, oh, shit, he saw me.
Did he show up he's in his wheelchair then?
Yeah. He went to the adult wing first, and then after that, he came into the juvenile wing, and they said, Alan Collins is here to talk to you guys from Lynyrd Skynyrd. Man, I hid in the corner. I was like, I don't want him to see me here. And yeah, I try to turn my back and get out the door, you know, like give me 3 steps. And he was like, hey, Chad, why don't you stick around for a little bit?
Well, Craig, didn't the judge sentence him to go around and doing that after that accident? He kind of had to go around and talk about drugs and drinking. But anyway, yeah, so I have a little story is about Gene Odom. When Gene Odom, if you could see Tanner right there, is that a Tanner Reed in the corner?
Yeah, I'm gonna have him. I told
Tanner
you
Reed,
so you might make
Craig's grandson, the baseball player.
three
wild,
generations.
The wild thing.
Three Reeds. But yeah, I was going to tell a story about Gene Odom where he was in the hospital and he was having a heart procedure, and I went to bring him a picture of the Hell House. It was framed, and I went in there and they didn't know who he was, and I said, you know, this guy here was Ronnie Van Zant's best friend. He was on the plane when it crashed, and they're like, really? And then later on, Gene said, well, they started treating me different. I said, they started treating you better, didn't they, Gene? He said, yeah, why? What'd you do? I said, well, I just told them that you were in the crash, and there was a bunch of them there that were Skynyrd fans, so they were lined up out the door trying to get his autograph. But he did get preferential treatment. So what's happening, Tanner? You want to say something on the podcast?
Yeah, what's up? I finally got it. My dad just gave me an earbud so I can hear now.
Yeah, Tanner, so what's the latest on your baseball?
I actually have to go throw a bullpen for a college. They texted me and asked me if I could go throw a bullpen with them probably this weekend because I'm going to be in Georgia and that's where they're at. So
you still haven't signed with anybody yet?
No, not yet. I'm working on it though.
Tanner's how fast is your fastball now?
We're pretty sure I've hit 90, but I've recorded 89 on a gun multiple times.
So in the Reed family, Craig played baseball, and then Chad played baseball, and now Tanner plays baseball. We're hoping that that Tanner's going to be the pro in the family, right, Chad?
Yeah, I'm definitely the best one, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of got distracted on my way to professional baseball, and I think Chad kind of followed me.
No, I got injured.
Uh,
I got injured, my shoulder and my neck.
If you ask me, I'm the best one in the family.
Yeah, I've witnessed Tanner. He is pretty good. He does have a little bit of an injury thing going on, but I think you got control over that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we got a couple more weeks left of it.
Yeah.
Should be.
So one day everybody will see Tanner on TV pitching, and then you'll go, "Hey, there's the STONED Roadie's grandson out there on the mound."
Hey, I threw out the first pitch up at the Arrows, Akron Arrows, my minor league game. Yeah, I went up there and threw out the first pitch. I actually threw a strike too.
Well, hey,
Got it on film.
now that we have Tanner on the podcast here, so Tanner, it's got to be kind of weird for you to be the grandson of your grandfather, was like the head roadie for Lynyrd Skynyrd. And I know whenever I was around you there at that little concert that we had at the Polk Theater, and you were kind of over there on your phone, you didn't really care too much about what was going on with the Lynyrd Skynyrd. What do you think about Lynyrd Skynyrd, and in your mind, what is it about Lynyrd Skynyrd that intrigues you or not?
I don't think Tanner even listens to Lynyrd Skynyrd, to tell you the truth. And I was thinking that about earlier today. Let me do this. The fact that I went out, I'm famous because I went out and gave Alan his guitar so he could put it on. That's kind of funny. I mean, it's kind of like, it's like weird. It's like everybody looks at me like I had kind of like the coolest job and everything. And granted it was, but some of the respect or whatever I get, oh man, that had to be the coolest thing to go run out there and put Alan's guitar on him. I said, it was, but to me that's not anything to become famous over or whatever. I mean, I just take this world famous roadie thing as a joke, and just roll with it, but it's just, the whole thing is just amazing to me how 50 years later everybody's got a little story about what they remember about Lynyrd Skynyrd, and it's 50 years ago. It's just crazy that they still have so much inquiries about it. So anyway, so go ahead, Tanner, and I'm sorry I interrupted, but go ahead.
Yeah, Tanner, what do you know about Lynyrd Skynyrd? Tell us what you know about him.
I've heard a lot of stories from my dad mostly, but they have it on all the time at the house. I like Lynyrd Skynyrd. Like, I listen to it, and
he knows everybody in the band's name. I've been trying to study him up a little bit on what happened, and especially the stuff on my dad's videotapes, because he's the sole proprietor of that. And if we could have another generation that has the videotapes and knows the stories behind it, I think that's pretty important to me, and who knows what it can do for him in the future. But to be honest with you, he's the only one out of everybody in the family, or our household, that's been recognized somewhere by Skynyrd fans.
Does anybody ever ask you about Lynyrd Skynyrd? Or do they know anything about you, Tanner, as far as being related?
He got approached in a what was it? At a Buc-ee's in like Georgia. And somebody was like, "Oh my God, that is him."
Yeah.
So they that is a Skynyrd kid. That is him. And Tanner was like, "That was pretty neat."
Well, Chad and Tanner and them are best friends with Brett Myers, who pitched in the World Series with the Phillies, and they all run around. That's kind of the little clique, I guess you call it. They all run around, and Brett. Well, Brett met Johnny through Chad, me and Chad. Brett, was got to meet Johnny, and then him and Johnny did a little recording, I guess. So it's kind of all,
Yeah, they did a song together
a little bit, But yeah, Brett knew about Chad, about because his dad worked for Lynyrd Skynyrd, But yeah, the whole thing it's kind of comical how it's just that name will get you in little doors that will pop open. It's funny.
Tanner, have you met Johnny Van Zandt?
I think I have once, haven't I?
Yeah, one time.
I don't really remember it.
He was a kid. Tanner was a kid though then.
Yeah, I was a little younger. I don't really.
Yeah, he's a pretty nice guy. He's a really nice guy.
No, but Tanner knows like Jason Todd from Shine Down. He's been around him a few times, and it was funny because that was actually one of Tanner's favorite songs was that Tell My Mama, Tell My Daddy, song by Shine Down. And Tanner was in the tour bus with me and Brett, and Jason's the guitar player for Brett. And I said, you know who that is, Tanner? He's like, no. And I said, that's Jason from Shine Down. That's the guitar player of your favorite song. And he was kind of
you're live,
at odds about that.
Dad's talking right now, but that's all right.
Do you, Tanner? Do you have any kind of stories that that have to do with your dad and Lynyrd Skynyrd that's been kind of told that you would say that you've heard before?
I know he loves telling the story about when he was I think it was Owen in the music video that they had at the airport.
No, it was Ronnie.
It was Ronnie. Okay, yeah, it was Ronnie. He told that one a lot. Because he was
Did
actually
you already
in the music
tell that
video.
one yet, Chad? Have we heard that one yet?
Oh no, I just the Simple Man video when it says "Come sit beside me, my only son," and it shows in the background it's me and Ronnie fighting, and I've always thought that was pretty neat because Ronnie was always like, you're the only son I never had, And
Oh yeah.
so when it said on the actual part of that video when it says "Come sit beside me, my only son," that's me and Ronnie in the back fighting, and I've always thought that was pretty special.
They used to show that at the Skynyrd concerts until they didn't want to pay me any money to do it, so I told them to quit showing it. So,
well, there's a video, the Simple Man video, and it's on YouTube, and they show it on that. They actually zoom in on it.
Yeah, you go to a show now, you won't see my videos.
Well, that was
you mean Tanner's videos?
Yeah, Tanner's video. Yeah, you won't see them there anymore.
That was a pretty cool picture that you put up, Craig, that had Chad when he was this little blonde-haired little kid standing there next to a box that says Lynyrd Skynyrd on it and a Mace amp in the background, and that's really an awesome picture. That's the first time I've ever seen that picture.
Oh, I got a bunch of pictures of Chad sitting on the drums and doing, him and Ronnie, just there's a bunch of pictures of him. Yeah, that's a pretty cool one.
If you can, maybe one of these times when we go on, you can put that on your background. That those ones with Chad. I like those pictures with Chad in there. It just goes to show that the generations of Skynyrd fans and people that are involved with Skynyrd on down the line, all the way down to Tanner. So, you want to get into some questions to Chad?
Yeah, let's hit it.
Okay. Let me see here. All right, we'll start up here. I just put up a post here this morning, and got some questions here for Chad. It says this first one here, Jim Folds is asking, did Chad get any encouragement from Ronnie about being a rock star performer with moves like Jagger?
No. I mean, honestly, like I said this before, Chris was a little bit more into the music part. I was a little bit more into the Chris Vile, Artemis' son. I was a little bit more into the athletic side of it, man. I was always, hitting a baseball or had boxing gloves on or skateboarding or, riding a bike. And he gave me a lot of encouragements about playing sports. Ronnie loved sports. He thought he was going to be a Yankee growing up.
That picture out at the Hell House where Alan's swinging the baseball bat, That's Chad. That was your wiffle ball setup.
Yeah, I was pitching to him. Yeah, I was pitching to him.
Yeah, well, I could say some of the moves that Ronnie probably gave you were fighting moves. Yeah, you know.
No, but I do
taught
play
him how
guitar.
to bite. He taught him how
yeah.
to bite. I'd always wrestle with Chad, and one day I had him pinned and he bit me. He goes, Ronnie told me to do that.
Yeah, so we get so point you can't do nothing else, just bite them. Like I said, that got me in trouble because I bit a kid's tit off in junior high school.
Well, you know, I mean, I never knew that Ronnie bit until.
Bite, pull hairs, horse bit, stick his finger. You know, somebody told me a long time ago, and nobody ever believes it, but man, I've used it quite a few times. Is take your thumb and cram it in somebody's ear, and the amount of pressure that it gains to the eardrum is extrudinating. I've been in a couple, sticky situations, and that's got me out of it a few times.
Well, you know, sometimes you have to fight dirty. So.
I ain't never heard of a clean fight.
Okay, let's continue with the questions. Chris Waldron, hey Chad, do you have any mementos, keepsakes from your time with Alan?
I have one that I don't really like to talk about until it's done. I've had a bunch of them. And I kick myself in the butt all the time. From Alan and Gary, they get promo guitars in and stuff and bang them on the ground and say, this thing's a piece of shit, and throw it at me. Take it home, take it home. So I've had all their promo guitars from them. And then, no, I don't really have anything left of them at all, over the years. And I just didn't appreciate the stuff so much, sold a lot of stuff, gave a lot of stuff away. So,
you probably didn't know the value of it at the time, it's
I said something on the last podcast about I'm not a big fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And I kind of wanted to clear this up, so I'm glad you brought this up. It's not that I'm not a fan of Skynyrd, but it's kind of hard to be a fan of your uncles or your, parents, or to say that you're a fan of what I would consider my uncles or my parents or, immediate family, it's kind of weird to me. It's just like Lisa Marie Presley saying she's a fan of Elvis. No, it was her dad.
Right.
Do I listen to the music? Do I know every word? Do I know a lot of the guitar parts? Do I know almost every song on guitar? Absolutely. But to actually call myself a fan, I think that would be weird.
You did tell a story that people might not have seen on the other podcast where Alan had given you a guitar and somebody kind of interceded before you could leave that day and said that it wasn't supposed to go to you. And that would have been a great gift from Alan had it happened. And
I would have kept that. That was a gold top. That was a gold top Les Paul. And what he said was, Alan's made me promise not to have him give away anything when he's drunk or messed up anymore.
Yeah.
And then he took it and sold it to somebody else and ended up at a pawn shop or something. And Alan thought I took it and sold it, was all pissed off about it. And that wasn't what happened. It was the guy that came out there and grabbed it from. But I've even asked Amy years ago later, I said, hey, you think there's any way I can get that gold top off of you? Your dad gave it to me. And she was like, I don't think she knew where this stuff was at that time.
Yeah, well,
I think Larkin had everything at that time.
Okay, Jim Sakatsky. I might have butchered that. I don't know. Sorry if I did, Jim. Did Chad ever go riding in a car with Alan? And if so, he was a crazy driver, like everyone says, or do you think it was cool racing around behind so young and not knowing any better?
No. Cool would be on a racetrack at the Daytona 500 with Dale Earnhardt. Not Mario Andretti on back roads. I've been in a car with Alan plenty of times. I was in the car with Alan in the wreck, or the car that he had with the wreck. After a Rossington Collins show, I think it was a volunteer jam. I remember we went through Jack's Liquors, and he picked up a bottle, and he was already drunk after the show, and he picked up another bottle. But I was so amazed that nobody knew who he was at Jack's Liquors, you know, that he just pulled up, got a bottle, and nobody was like, oh my God, that was Alan Collins. You know, and we ended up in the neighbor's ditch in the front of the yard. And one time he had the cops trying to jump the fence, and he was shooting the cop in the ass with a BB gun. Cop's name was Lynn Sweeney. So I know Lynn's kind of a Skynyrd fan. The cop's name was Lynn Sweeney, and coming home from that show, Alan got a little bit crazy in the driveway, the neighbor's driveway, and then in his driveway, and we hopped the fence and hid inside the house, and Lynn was trying to climb over the fence, and Alan was shooting a BB gun at him.
Hey,
So
I saw a recent picture of Alan's house, and the front of his house is a gate with a big dent in it. And to me, I would think Alan probably did that. So if anybody,
that gate was replaced many times. You can ask Gene Odom about that. I think I've seen him out there replacing it or fixing it or something a few times. You know, I'd go into the house and pull up, and Gene was out there. He was always helping Alan. He was out there mowing the yard and fixing things around the house. And
which leads me to a question there, Jackie Stahl. And Jackie Stahl, I got this, Craig, here's our first fan mail. Got this from Jackie Stahl. Thank you, Jackie. Got this little letter in here, and she asked a question to Chad, and I'll read the question. But I'm going to read what she sent in this card here. She's trying to get something off of Craig having to do with that car. Everybody knows that Craig has Alan's car in his yard, and everybody's always wanting a piece of it, including me. I think I even asked Craig one time to sell me the mirror out of that thing, and he goes, no, everything stays with the car. It's all original. Nothing.
You know, everybody talks about how bad Alan was. My dad wasn't too much better. You know, that's like the blind driving the blind in a car. That car, I remember one time we used to run through toll booths all the time. He'd act like he was throwing change in it as the car in front of him. We'd take off through it. And he was going down Arlington Expressway, and this cop turned around on him in that Tornado, and that thing was fast. He goes, oh shit, here they come. And man, we were going down Arlington Expressway at least 130 going off ramp and looping back around. And we had another time we went down to the dunes in St. Augustine, or it was St. Augustine in the Jeep, and my dad's got a joint in one hand and a bottle of liquor in the other, and we jumped over the top of a cop car in that old Jeep. That guy was not amused.
That car that Craig has out in his yard, I don't know how much history Alan had. I think you drove it more than he did.
Yeah, he bought it and gave it to me. You know, he drove it a little bit and gave it to me for my birthday.
Jackie, I guess she knows about it, and she sent this letter. Thanks for the Hell House sticker. I sent so many of those Hell House stickers out. I don't know who all I sent them to. Evidently, I sent one to her. She said it's a delightful addition to my Lynyrd Skynyrd collection. I appreciate all the efforts you guys are making in the podcast. I enjoy Craig's stories about our boys, which she calls Lynyrd Skynyrd her boys, and their extraordinary adventures. And it goes on down to ask if you would consider selling her the license plate off the back of it, which I don't even think it's on there anymore, is it?
It's hanging it's hanging in my kitchen above the doorway. No. Oh no, yeah, it's in the kitchen. I got a couple in here, but yeah, it's over above the doorway.
Well, she says she'd give you $500 for it. If you...
Oh wow!
Hey, how much would somebody give if he cuts the cushion out of the driver's side where Alan's ass at?
So Jackie, you can't say I didn't ask him. I asked him right here for you.
I'll think about it.
Okay. He'll think about it, and he's been known to do things like that. So you might just get that thing. And she asked the question, I read in an article that Alan used to buy old junkers and take them into the woods and roll them for fun.
No, that never
Is that
happened.
anything to that?
Nah, it never happened.
No, but my dad used to try to do it in his backyard all the time.
Yeah,
We-
no,
we
my
got-
backyard. Yeah, there's been plenty cars destroyed in my backyard. Yeah.
Racing around the hills, what we call it.
Here we have a question from Bill Hughes. Did Chad ever have Alan play after the accident? Did he ever hear Alan play after the accident?
Yep.
And was there a possibility he could have played with the band again?
I did hear him play after the accident, and that was another time he shot me with a BB gun when I walked in on him. He could play the basic stuff. His whole thing was that if he wasn't Alan Collins, he wasn't playing. You know, it's kind of like saying could Michael Jordan go back and play with the Bulls again with two bummed out knees at 50, 60 years old? You know, if Alan's isn't Alan Collins, like he would always say, the baddest motherfucker on the planet, you know, if that wasn't him, he wasn't going to do it. And I talked to him about it. That's exactly what he told me.
So what was I know we talked about that one time before in another podcast, but you may not have gone into detail. Didn't you hear him playing outside
I was in the garage. I was in the garage and Gene was out there. Matter of fact, Gene was out there. I think it was mowing the lawn. And me and Gene were out there talking. He was like, I wouldn't go in there right now.
And so,
and I went into the garage and heard it playing. I walked in. I just looked at him like, yeah, you told me you couldn't play. And he got all pissed off.
And didn't you say he threw the guitar behind the couch and
yeah, he kind of took it. Wait, no, he took the guitar up from behind the couch and grabbed a BB gun.
Well, okay, maybe that leads into this question. Wendy Redwine Goebel, which that's a cool name. Wendy's been on here several times before. Chad, what's your favorite memory of Alan?
Oh God, I got so many of them. You know, taking a girlfriend over to Alan's house was not cool. You know, and I had this girlfriend named Sandy, and she was a Hooters waitress, and a blonde hair girl, you know, your typical Hooters waitress. Well, Alan, as soon as she walked in the door, he'd start, "Come here, baby, I was cleaning all something for you to sit on," moving his head around, and hey, stand up again. Let me get a look at that sniffer. You know, and yeah, just I mean that and you know, he called me up like 2-3 days later and said, "Hey, bring that girl back over here again. I want to look at her a little bit longer," you know. So we drive down there. I go, "Sandy, I'm so sorry." She was like, "Oh no, I think it's funny," you know. And she'd even say sometimes, "Let's go down to Alan's house. I want to see him mess with me," you know. But I go down to his house. I couldn't get into, especially if I had a girl, I couldn't get into words. He was just always something. You know, them blades go all the way up to a honey pot, right? You know, and just always yeah, that's pretty much that's probably my favorite stuff, because it was just so funny, man.
I heard one of his favorite things to say at the bar was, "Hey, give me some of that thing, baby. I know you got some of it on."
I know, yeah, give me some of that putty. I know you got it on you. You know, oh yeah, it was yeah. I mean, you know, stories like that. You know, him always sticking his, I know this sounds funny, but him sticking his tongue into his nose. You know, you just be sitting there talking to him, and you say something stupid, and he just look at you and stick his tongue up his nose. You know, there's another time we were driving down matter of fact, it was in that Tornado, and we were driving. Alan was in the front seat, my dad was driving, and I was in the back seat singing something. I think it might have been some of the Alan Collins stuff, and Alan said, "Hey, Chad, your dad tells me you're turning into a pretty good guitar player." I said, "I'm working on it." He said, "Good, fucking stop singing." You know, just stuff like that. You know, those are my favorite memories of Alan. Just his wit and the way he was, and just, you know, didn't no holds bar when it came to his mouth. He didn't care. He'd say it.
Oh, Brian,
I mentioned when they gave me them pain pills and I couldn't eat them because they made me constipated,
Oh.
and I had a smoking. I called it a smoke. I had a smoking donut because my butthole was on fire, and Alan and I told Chad that, and he goes, "Yeah, Alan used to say it was a tap tap. What do you call it?
No,
You couldn't
pat my
couldn't
ass.
wipe it. You just had to tap it."
It was pat my ass shit. When your butt's so sore you can't wipe it, you just gotta pat at it. You know? So what's wrong with you? I got pat my ass shit. I'm like, that sounds terrible.
You know, people that don't realize this is just typical Florida redneck stuff here is what that is.
Yeah.
Jacksonville,
Yeah.
West Side redneck. That's what that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Brian Thompson says, what is the best advice Alan gave you in life?
Man, just go out and do it, man. If you're gonna do something, give it your all. When my dad and my mom couldn't stand each other, you know, and after they were divorced, so he'd go to baseball games, you know, and he'd sit out in center field and put his camera up on the car and sit back there and smoke weed and drink. And but after the games, he'd always go down to Alan's house and they would watch the games on Alan's TV. So Alan was always really involved. Yeah, I saw that game you played the other day. And he has always said, man, when you step out the stage, just make sure you're the baddest motherfucker on the planet, man. Just that you want everybody staring at you. You want to be so much better than everybody else. You know, everything you do, everything you step into, just make sure you're the baddest motherfucker on the planet. And I pass that down to Tanner too.
Yeah, so I guess Tanner's getting Alan Collins advice through Chad.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I've given them advice. Well, I mean, I don't know any other advice besides the advice that I got from them. You know, that's the advice that I grew up on.
So Brian Boggs, he's asking, how were Billy's children? They never get mentioned. You in touch with any of the other guys?
I've talked to Brandon, his son, who's a hell of a guitar player. I've talked to him a couple of times. And yeah, I remember his daughters. And I've had some interaction, but it hasn't been within 20 years of Ellen's daughters that were his stepdaughters. But no, I mean, my biggest thing with Billy is I remember going over there and watching like Sonny and Cher, you know, and stuff like that on and him playing the piano and riding the boat. You know, he had a dock out his back and crossing the St. Johns River in it, you know. But yeah, I really don't have any connections with any of his kids besides, like I said, I could get a hold of Brandon if I wanted to, but that's it.
What's Joel doing now? He was an attorney.
Or is it Joel? Is that
Brandon?
Yeah, Joel.
Yeah, Brandon and Joel.
Yeah, Brandon and Joel. Yeah, I think Joel is.
One of them got to
attorney.
be an attorney or something. I don't remember which one.
Well, Chad says that he is in touch with Artimus, and
Chris
may be able to get Artimus on the podcast for us somehow.
Yeah, I'll talk to Artemis. No, but you know, me and Chris Pyle, we're like brothers. Artemis's son, Chris, we're like brothers. Yeah, you know, we love each other. You know, and that's a big thing with that whole band is back then nobody was shy to say I love you. You know, when they saw you, it's I love you, and you know, like I said, I do it with my wife and Tanner. You know, just love you. My really good friends. Before I hang up, I always say love you. You know. And but me and Chris were like brothers, and me and Amy, man, we were really close, and we were kind of like the Three Stooges. It's a shame that Amy just wants nothing to do with anything with the band at all.
Do you remember the last time you saw Alan?
Yeah, in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with when Larkin was there, and him and Larkin went a pretty heated conversation regarding the tribute band that I'd rather not get into what was said, but yeah, that was the last time I saw him.
So was he doing all right at the time and feeling okay? What was it? Why was he in the hospital?
Well, he was extremely pissed off that day.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was extremely extremely aggravated that day, and I spent maybe 5 or 10 minutes with him and left. But he
How
was
about,
not he was not in the mood to say I love you at that point.
how about the last time you saw Billy Powell?
Yeah, and that's another conversation I kind of want to get into. But me and Billy had a sit down conversation about a certain situation and wanted to know if I could help him out with it. But yeah, it was probably the last time I saw Billy.
And how long after you'd seen him that he died? Was it a long period of time?
Yeah, probably. My dad knows the situation I'm talking about, so I don't know how many years would that have been.
Do you have any interaction with Leon's son at all?
Lily, I just talked to him a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I talked to Lily. I had some interactions with a kid that claimed to be Leon's son that kind of got blown way out of proportion. But if he just would have stopped talking about it, it wouldn't have gone that far.
Well, what you don't really hear too much from Leon. I mean, I was friends with him on my other page that I got.
Who, Lily?
Yeah, but how's he feel about?
Lily's awesome. How's he feel about what?
How does he feel about Lynyrd Skynyrd now? Does he kind of like shy away from him? Doesn't talk about him much, or?
He's still extremely proud that they're out there playing his dad's music. Yeah. I'll just leave that at that.
Well, Craig, you got anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's a pretty good time on that.
I saw a question on there. Somebody asked how Alan was with his children.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that one. There's a bunch of them around in here. Yeah, go ahead and speak to that one.
That's something I would really like for a lot of people to know. Alan was extremely, extremely, extremely caring and loving with his kids, and every time Allison would come around the corner, it was always, hello, beautiful. Hey, beautiful. Good to see you, beautiful. What can I get you, beautiful? Look at my beautiful daughter. And Amy, he was protective of what was going on. When we got older, Alan called me on many occasions and told me to go out and find her and beat the hell out of her boyfriend and, and all that stuff, and would give me money for gas and give me money for, to beat him up. And Amy ended up marrying the guy that, his name's Joey. I think, from as far as I know, they're still together, and they have 4 or 5 kids. Amy has a son now, which is cool, and I'd really love to hear how he's doing. But Joey was a great guy, but Alan just didn't like that somebody else was taking time with his daughter away from him. So Alan was a very, very, very loving person to his kids, and would have done anything for him.
Alan was just a crazy bitch, though. That's just.
I mean,
Alan was a really generous guy. Alan was really generous. He was really generous with me. Very generous.
Yeah, I know. Craig's always got stories about Alan giving him things. So yeah, that's.
Last time I really saw Amy was when she was coming off a tour. When she went out in the tribute tour that started. And she went out and they introduced her, and she came off stage and she said, "My daddy loved you." That really was touching.
Yeah. Yeah, and I talked to Melody, Ronnie's daughter. Me and Melody still, we see each other. We're happy to see each other.
Yeah, and since that happened, to her, I know you spoken to her not long before she died.
Well, that was Tammy. Tammy passed away.
Yeah, Tammy.
Me and Tammy had we had a brother and sister type of relationship. I was always trying to look after.
We haven't talked to you since Tammy died. So anything that you can remember having to say, having a conversation with her at all?
She always called me little big brother. That was our thing, Hey, little big brother, because Tammy's a few years older than me, but I've always been like a big brother to her. And so if she ever needed advice or somebody just to bitch her out, sometimes she'd call it just knowing I was going to bitch her out. But if she needed that, I was always there for her.
So you guys were pretty close then.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's been over to my house a couple times, and when she was in the hospital, I went down there.
Chad was friends with that whole over at Lacey's. He still lived in that house, and then all the cousins were right there, Robbie and Ronnie and all that crowd, all the Johnny's.
Those are the grandkids and the nephews of little Ronnie and
Johnny's
Robbie.
band, Austin Nichols and all that. Chad, you hung around with Johnny and all them guys after I left.
Yeah, Eric Lundgren. I got a really good story about Johnny. We got a couple of seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was this. We all hung out at a place called Hobby Oasis down here at the beach, and there was this guy. Oh man, I just thought of his name the other day, but I can't think. Sean, and Sean was, closer to Johnny's age, maybe a little bit younger, but he always had the nicest cars, the nicest clothes, the best looking girlfriends. Well, this one girlfriend that he had, Johnny had, I guess, expressed a little bit of an interest in her. And so he was down at Hobby Oasis talking about when he sees Johnny Van Zandt, he's going to beat his ass. And I was like, no, you won't. And I don't think he really knew the relationship there. So we ended up at a bar. It used to be called Papa's. I don't remember what it was called at this time. And sure enough, Johnny was there. Him and Robbie and Eric Lundgren. And that guy Sean saw him, and he came flying around, wanted to go after him. I kind of intercepted that. Me and this guy got into it. We're fighting out in the middle of the floor, and damn it, if Johnny and Eric and Robbie did just turn around and look, oh, check that out. Two idiots fighting, and just walked off. I went down to the practice hall down there at Lacey's house. They had a little practice area back there, and Johnny was there with the whole group, and I forget which wife he was with at that time, but I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, did you see that fight in Papa's?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, that's stupid. Where were you at?" And I said, "Saving your ass." That was me that was fighting that guy because he was about to blind shot you.
Wow. Well, I guess Johnny had a wild side when he was younger, but he's a pretty nice guy now, from what I've seen.
Johnny's the baby. It was Donnie's the one that you had to worry about. I mean, Donnie was just the stuff that Ronnie was.
Okay, Craig, you about ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, Chad,
that was fun. Here we go.
Coming on, and you're always welcome to come back. So we're gonna have
you.
Hi, Craig.
Yeah. Anytime, yeah.
And the other thing too is we're gonna have Paul Abraham back on here. Probably.
Yeah,
next
I think next. Yeah, we're gonna get Paul and Mike Estes. He's coming back from Europe, from the Europe tour, and we couldn't. I think he just got home today. I think, and it just couldn't put it together. So we're gonna have Paul and Mike on next week. But then you're in the moving process or something.
Yeah, I'm in the. That's the reason I got my dolly back behind here to show I'm in the moving process. Which this hurricane has screwed it all up, and I don't know what's going to happen now, but. Everything's up in the air, but I'm sure it'll work out somehow. But yeah, thanks, Chad, for coming on and
hey, no problem.
All the great stories. All righty, Craig, let's wrap it up.
Okay, then. Well, this is a Stone Roadie show, a happy episode 33, and here we go. Happy trails to you until we meet again. And they'll call that a wrap.